good?
To my mom, yes.
I don't think the air conditioning's on here, so longer we wait, it'll get hotter. It's put up 5 past 6:30, so more people can come in. Thank you all for coming. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brian Palmucci. I'm the Ward 4 City Councilor. We're here to talk about sober houses in the city of Quincy in kind of a general sense, but you all are here because it affects your neighborhood. You may have noticed that half the room doesn't look like your neighbors, and that's because we have two separate neighborhoods here tonight. Both going through the very same issue at the same time. I have to say, well, first of all, this is John. He tapes city council meetings. He's taping this meeting tonight. So anything you don't want to be recorded in posterity, I wouldn't say while he's taping you. I have sign-in sheets. Anyone, if you could sign in, anyone who signs up, be happy to. If there's any questions that we can't answer tonight or something that needs follow-up, obviously we'll get that information to you. I'll use those lists to get that information out, whether it's email or mail. Two things. One, I want to thank you. I know that this location isn't super convenient, and I know that it wasn't very long notice to have this meeting. But this is a super busy time of year for a lot of things in the city, and I wanted to have the meeting as quickly as possible. I didn't think that this was the kind of thing that we wanted to wait until it was a convenient date. So I thank you all for coming. I got a couple calls today about the letter and the wording of the letter, and I apologize to anybody if I confused you or wasn't clear enough with the wording of the letter. So the way that we're going to work this is it's a forum. Jay Duker is here from the mayor's office. Jay is the director of inspectional services. He runs our building department. We have a representative from Quincy Police Department and a representative from Mayor Cope's office. Mayor Cope, I called him as soon as some of these issues were brought to my attention about the sober houses in these neighborhoods. And I think anyone who I've talked to knows that I knew nothing about these before they went in, before they opened. There isn't a process. Jay's going to talk about that a little bit, but we have, I think, 4 or 6, if you count these two, sober houses in the city of Quincy. I'm sorry, in Ward 4, just in our part of the city. One of them's right near my house, right around the corner. It is run by a reputable individual. They provide real treatment there, and people are actually getting help. And they are not a problem whatsoever for the neighborhood. There's one down in Brewer's Corner. That's the only one that's come into being since I've been counselor for the past going on 8 years. And that one, they came to me and said, we're going to turn this old rooming house into a sober house. And I said, okay, well, let's get together with the community, talk about what the concerns are, and you can address it directly with the members of the community who live there. Again, there's no regulatory process that they have to go through, so they didn't have to do that. We had a community meeting. Folks said what their concerns were. The owners who run multiple other sober houses and provide real treatment, they were able to answer those questions, and folks came away with, maybe I'm not thrilled that there's a sober house in my neighborhood, but I know it's being run professionally. These guys gave me their card, I have their cell phone number, and I know what to do if there's a problem, who to call. We've had really very little problems with that house as well. These houses are the first, I would say, hostile sober houses to come into Ward 4. And they came within a couple months of each other. So there was no notice to me, no notice to the city. If there had been, I would have let you folks know. Is there anyone here from either of the sober houses, representatives? All right, I called them and mailed them and asked them to come here.
What sober houses are the ones?
So there's two. There's the Goddard House, and then I believe the one in Gardner Rose is called Phase 2.
I don't know Phase 2, but I'm the director of the Bennington houses.
Okay.
I run them, and they're very reputable. They're all NASH certified.
I'll let you defend. I'll let you talk about that as we get into it. I just want to know if you were here.
Yes, I'm definitely.
One, I give you a lot of credit for coming. I thank you for coming and being here and participating in the discussion. That's an important first step. There's a couple other things I want. Oh, so the way that we're going to do this is more informational. Okay, a lot of people have asked me, well, what can we do? how do we get rid of this or whatnot. I don't know the answers to these questions, but Jay Duker is a person in the city who has the most knowledge about these. This isn't the first time the city's faced this issue with a sober house in a particular place that maybe doesn't belong. So Jay's gonna give a little bit of a presentation in terms of what the laws are, mass law, federal law, what the state can and can't do. And then what I'll do is just try and moderate kind of a question and answer period. And we'll stick around as long as we can for so that people can get all their questions answered, get everything that they want to say off their chest. No time limit. I just ask that we're all respectful of the people who are speaking when they're speaking. Don't shout anybody down. The other thing I wanted to say is, so obviously there's more seats. If you want to go in and around, there's some seats you can pull right in. Obviously, the nation is facing an opioid epidemic, right? So everyone I've talked to on the phone about this has given me this kind of caveat at the beginning, like, hey, listen, I'm not saying these things are all bad. So I'm going to throw the blanket caveat out for the whole room so that everybody doesn't have to say this. We need sober houses in Quincy. We need sober houses in Massachusetts. We need more sober houses in the country, and we need better and improved treatment. Because we're concerned about the location and the operation of a particular house, whether it's your house or another house, that doesn't mean we're against the principle of people getting help who are addicted, okay? So one, I want to make sure everyone knows that, because I know that there are advocates here for sober houses. We all believe, well, I'm going to speak freely for everyone, but in a sense, we all believe that folks who are addicted need help, they need services. The issue here is whether or not some of these services belong in the place that they're being offered, okay? That's really what the issue is. I'm not a big believer of a sober house being in a single-family neighborhood and being run out of a single-family home. That, to me, right off the bat, strikes me as a problem, but we'll get into this, and it's your neighborhood, so it's going to strike you as a bigger problem than it strikes me. But I've talked to Mayor Koch about this a number of times. As I said, his director of policy, Chris Walker, is here. He might want to make a statement on behalf of the mayor. The mayor's in full support of whatever we can do in terms of trying to maintain quality of life in these neighborhoods, because that's what the issue is, right? I mean, you want to be able to have quiet, peace, and enjoyment and live in a safe neighborhood. And I think both neighborhoods have experienced that. They're very good neighborhoods with tight-knit communities. People know each other, and now you have folks you don't know walking around the neighborhood, and there's cars coming and going at night, and it's a change to the quality of life. And that's really, for me, that's what the issue is here, is trying to get to a solution for maintaining that quality of life in our neighborhood. I think there was something else I wanted to say, but I'm just going to turn it to Chris. Do you want to say anything?
Thank you, folks. As the council mentioned, my name is Chris Walker. I'm with Mayor Koch's office. And just to quickly reiterate, I won't repeat anything Council Palmucci said, but Mr. Duker is going to get into some of the regulatory issues that are at play here, be it state or federal, not so much local, unfortunately. But that being said, that doesn't mean we just throw our arms up and say, too bad, nothing we can do about the quality of life issues that may come with one of these facilities, one of these homes. I just want to reiterate from the mayor's perspective that we're open to any and all ideas, any and all concepts, working together with our police department, working together with inspectional services, our legal department, on how we address some of these issues. Mr. Duke is going to get into how these things are regulated, and they're really not. But that doesn't mean we can't make a good faith effort to resolve some of these issues, and that's what we're open to. With that, I would just...
Sure, and just the last thing I want to say is Councilor Margaret LaForest from Ward 1 is here. She joined the council the same time I did. We kind of tackle things with the buddy system. This is an issue she's addressed before. I've asked her to be here tonight, and she's very supportive of the things we're trying to do to protect the neighborhood. But so thank you, Council, for coming and helping with the chairs. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Jay. If you could just maybe give us a little primer on what the sober house laws are, what the city can and can't do.
Sure.
If we don't like what you say, we're going to put you in the old. This is the old city. I can't resist. This is the old city jail. This used to be the police station. This is actually a jail. So maybe if you don't like by the end of the night, you can throw me in there. But all right, Jay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. My name is Jay Duker. I'm the Director of Inspection Services. Back in early 2000 is when this first came on the radar. Somebody came into my office and said they were going to open up a sober house. My answer to him was, not in this city, you're not. So soon after, I quickly got educated on the laws that pertain to sober houses, how we can regulate them, how we cannot regulate them. And I'm going to share all of that with you right now, and afterward I'll open it up for questions. But these are just facts and legal issues. It's not opinion, so I'll just share with you what I learned. The sober houses are really, technical name is alcohol and drug-free housing, ADF housing. They're protected by the Americans with Disabilities Act. The Supreme Court has established that people who are recovering are disabled and they're afforded protections under the Disability Act. Federal courts have rejected state and local efforts to regulate any kind of ADF housing. It's also protected by the Mass Federal Fair Housing Amendments. The Federal Fair Housing Amendments. It limits the Commonwealth's or any state's ability to regulate ADF housing. It's also protected by the Massachusetts Zoning Act, which also specifically prohibits local governments from discriminating against persons with disabilities. And that includes any imposition of health and safety laws, land use requirements. And basically what it says is we have to treat these ADF facilities like we would treat any other single-family home. That's basically that's the baseline. There are some court cases, interesting court cases along the way. I'll share with you real quickly. In 1991, the 1991 was the first year that the Supreme Court come out and protected these ADF facilities. In 2006, the city of Chelsea sued and insisted that these homes be sprinklered. The Massachusetts Supreme Court ruled in favor of the appeals board and required all sober houses that had 6 or more people that they had to have sprinkler systems installed. In 2016, the federal court overturned that. They were sued by Edward Williams versus the Brockton Fire Department. And that case overturned the Chelsea case. And what they found was that sprinklers weren't discriminatory. And they weren't being treated like any other single-family home. There was a House bill in Massachusetts in 2013 that were going to enable cities and towns to regulate these facilities. That died last year sometime. There's no further action on that bill. You can look it up. I got some handouts with all these court cases and laws. You can go online and there's a lot of reading that you can check it out. Since that time, these sober houses have got together and created an alliance called the Massachusetts Alliance for Sober Housing, MASH for short. And basically it's a voluntary program that they're certifying themselves. They have a program, they have standards. There's a whole list of standards in order to be certified. They include drug testing. People have to work. They have to go be educated and attend these education seminars. If you belong to this MASH system, courts will not refer their clients unless they're certified under this particular MASH system. What we can regulate, like any other single-family home, we can regulate anything, any impacts to the neighborhood: trash, noise, traffic, garbage, disorderly house, any of these, just like we could regulate any other single-family home. We can also write violations for anything that, any of the violations against our ordinances. And the main thing I think is important to remember is that we cannot treat these any differently than a single-family home that you live in. We can't treat these any differently. With that, I can open it up for questions.
So Jay, can I just ask you a first question? So I have on the council tonight, I'm introducing, we talked about this on the phone, I'm introducing an ordinance that would require at a minimum 150 square feet per person who's unrelated in a dwelling residence. Because one of the concerns that I've heard about the sober houses that's part of the problem is that there's too many people in too small a house. That's causing problems with the traffic coming and going at all hours of the night, parking on the street, people out front smoking, there's too many people, trash flowing around the property and down the street. Is that something that we can regulate as a municipality?
So there's two issues with that. No city ordinance or a bylaw can interfere or regulate that anything that the state code is already regulated. So the state sanitary code already regulates how many people you can fit into a single-family home. The other thing about the state sanitary code, the intent and purpose of the state sanitary code is really to protect those people who are renting. And if you're in a single-family home, obviously you're not going to call and complain about your own living conditions. So, you know, if I get a call on the living conditions in this particular home or any ADF facility, I got to proceed with that very cautiously on how I approach it, because I wouldn't go and answer a complaint on any other single-family home. So I have to balance how I treat this. I got to be fair and consistent and treat all single-family homes the same.
When you say that sanitary code, what is that number of unrelated people? Is it 3, is it 4, is it 6? What is
So
it?
you're talking two different things. You're talking under the building code and state law, you can have up to 3 unrelated people living with you in your home. This is a whole different, this is a federally protected, these are people that are disabled. And they're considered, it's considered a group home. And they're recovering and they're helping each other and they're providing support for each other. So it's a whole different thing about the 3 unrelated, it's a whole different world.
So what you're saying is that law or bylaw or whatever you want to call it doesn't apply?
That doesn't apply. The federal law trumps, supersedes state law. State law supersedes local ordinances. And the building code and the sanitary code are authorized by state law. They're actually codes, but they still trump local ordinances.
So there's no limit to how many people that can be in that house?
So, in
So
answer
what you're talking about.
to answer your question, first of all, we were in the house on Gardner Road today, my chief building inspector.
You were inside?
Jim went inside, he knocked on the door, he told them what he was there for, they let him in, he walked around the house, no different than any other single-family home. You gotta remember,
Well, a little different,
what's that?
a little different.
Well, it's a big,
A shit
it's,
ton of people live there.
There's
Yeah.
10 people
Yeah.
living in
I
the house.
think Jim said there was 12.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But you gotta remember, so any one of those houses, here's what you gotta remember. Any one of those houses, if a family of no matter what denomination moves in, it's a large family, 10 people, 12 people, kids, I can't treat them any differently. So,
Well, whether you can, if they're not related, they're not. And I'm like.
Well, we're gonna go one at a time, all right? So we're gonna do raise, we're gonna raise hands. He still has the floor. I don't think you addressed the question, which was, can there be no limit?
so under the state law, there's a limit of 3 unrelated people unless they're related. So if you're related, yes, you can have a family of 10 or 12, whatever your family is. Under the federal law, this is a group housing. This is totally different than the state law. These are people who are recovering, and they are allowed to live together in a group environment as a single family. So this it's a step up above
Well,
the
it
state
just
law.
seems to compound things, right? If you have 12 people in that house, you have 12 vehicles. 6, 8 vehicles. I mean,
But-
that's a
but-
little problematic to me.
And you have to remember that if a family moved in there that had 6 kids in high school, it's also possible they can have that many cars. And I'm not advocating or sticking up on it. I'm just saying I can't treat them any differently than I would any other single family.
But there's no limit.
This is not a family house.
This is not a family house.
Good.
There were very specific rules about numbers of bedrooms and parking spaces that have to be associated with them. So how are we meeting those regulations that are firm? They're written, right?
So in a residential A neighborhood, there is no requirement, they just changed that actually.
Which is interesting because I'm going through the attempt to add 2 bedrooms to my own house so I can significantly invest in my property, which is right down the street from this, and raise my family there.
Yep.
And I am being told specifically that I need to have parking spaces to accommodate those additional bedrooms.
Yes.
So if that has changed, you know, that should be
So it's
broadly changed. Why am
changed.
I held to that standard?
Yes. So it's changed for anybody who's adding or going through the process, but those houses that are existing with whatever parking, that law got changed in our ordinance in 2011, where after 3 bedrooms, you needed 3 vehicles, 5 bedrooms, you needed 4 vehicles. So,
And if they have 15 people in there, I would argue there are more than 5 bedrooms, because I don't think that anyone's having more than 2.
I can tell you it's a large house, and there's a lot of rooms.
6,100
Jim-
square feet, right?
Yeah, Jim did not count the bedrooms, but I think everybody knows what type of houses are up on Gardner Road. I don't think I have to explain. Right, sir.
So what is the rules and regulations for parking overnight?
So parking is kind of grandfathered for all those houses up there. I mean.
Which is what though?
Well,
I'm
others.
only 8 years there.
In Residence A, prior to 2011, there were no set rules. It was silent on the number of vehicles you needed per bedroom. So you could have a house, we've got Victorian houses in the city that have 7 bedrooms.
I can actually, if I could just jump in here, I can speak to that a little bit. So currently, we really have ad hoc rules, okay? Technically, there's no overnight street parking anywhere in the city of Quincy for any cars. We do not enforce that. We just don't. Ma'am, listen, you're gonna get a chance to talk, we're gonna go one by one, okay? Everyone will have an opportunity to speak. So he has the
So what you're
floor.
saying
There
is,
are some things we can do. We're not
okay, so
totally-
if you just let me break a second,
If I
so,
were to pull out and there were cars, I mean, people have parties and we got a lot of cars on a weekend perhaps. If there were a lot of cars parked there every night spilling out onto the street, that's something I could.
do you have a second to look at something?
What's that?
Do you have a moment to look at something? I have the pictures of the average night.
We can have,
Why
We
don't
have
we?
5 cars in the street, 4 in the driveway, and then usually another 3 show up.
Wait,
there is, as Council Palmucci mentioned, there is no overnight parking without a permit in the city.
I do believe there
It
is some type of ordinance.
It is, technically, you could go get a sticker.
Because I know one of the neighbors called the police, and we really don't want to be calling the police to say someone's parking on the street that don't
What-
think
what we
that's
can
worth
do
their
is-
time. But there's also another safety issue. There are construction vehicles with ladders on them parked in the street. I know there's a rule about that.
overnight.
You cannot
There certainly
have.
is.
Excuse me?
Yeah,
There is.
Yep.
So what are we doing about that? These pictures
We can-
display it.
we
I
can-
got the pictures of the vans, they have ladders on them, they're overnight.
we could certainly have the police department up there on a night, overnight, do some ticketing. We can do it once a week, once the following week. It's not something, again, as Councilman Palmucci mentioned, it's a little bit ad hoc in the city. We generally don't send the police department out to handle parking issues on a regular basis. It's a case-by-case basis. You raise the issue, we're happy to ask the police department to go out there and do some selective enforcement in the neighborhood. Now, the flip side to that is, we go out for a couple weeks, we don't go back for another couple weeks. It has a tendency to repeat itself, so, but if we do stay on it, and if the neighborhood still wants, yes, keep enforcing the parking rules. Now, there's also a flip side, some of your neighbors park their car on the street, and unfortunately, they're probably gonna get ticketed too. So there's gonna be a little bit of, in your neighborhood, you're right, it's probably not that big of an issue, and probably enough driveway space that it doesn't become an issue. But yeah, we can absolutely have someone out there to do some ticketing.
So your recommendation is call the police.
You can call the city can call the police, you can call the police department. You know, sometimes frankly, it's easy if you guys call the mayor's office directly, the buck stops up there. Anything goes wrong, it's generally our fault. So if we know directly from you that you'd like some enforcement, then we know that we've called and asked for the enforcement. If for some reason they don't get to it, which happens, the police are busy. We do live in a city, it's a great city, but you know, they do have other issues. So if they don't get to it, at least we'll know because we asked them for it. As opposed to if you call and they don't for some reason get it, then you feel like maybe you're not getting responded to.
We get more calls than you'd think when people complain about overnight parking and they are addressed, like you said, on a, if we get the call, someone's gonna be down there. Like you say, we're not going down every street. I don't know, 15, 16 years ago, I was working midnights, they asked me to ticket cars on Appleton Street. I wrote 2 books of tickets, and the mayor's office got calls like crazy, and basically I was told not to do it again.
Officer, what happens when you these trucks are lined up in the street, and the neighbor across the street parks out on the sidewalk, out in the street, and a fire truck comes down, he can't get by the street.
And someone needs to let us know. We can't be everywhere at once.
Now it's a safety factor.
Pick up the phone, give us a call. Someone's out there.
I think the thing to remember is, we still, it isn't like they have a free ride. The thing to remember what Chris was saying is that call, if you have a complaint, call, we'll address every complaint, just like we would on any other single-family home. We would just answer it. Go ahead, David.
I have a question about supervision. Oh, did he call on you? Go ahead.
That's all right. You're right on the line, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a question about supervision. I mean, you know, we are held accountable, you know, for the number of people who are living in our homes, if it's, and it has to be owner occupied, correct? And if you have multiple unrelated people living in your home, the home has to be owner occupied?
No, we have no such thing like that. If you, when you live in a home, a single family, you can have up to 3 unrelated people living with you without running afoul of the law.
Living with you, but not, you don't necessarily have to be the owner.
But, correct.
Okay.
You have to be what
So-
they call the person in charge. the
So
person-
if that house was rented, they could have 4 unrelated people living in it. This is just a regular situation.
We're above the state law. That's a state law. We're above that. We're in a federally protected group home.
I know, but I'm talking in general. I'm
Okay.
trying to sort this out in my head.
Sure.
Supervision. Is there any supervision? Is there any required supervision? Is there any supervision in this house of these 12 or 15 men that are living up there now? Is there anybody living in the house with them? It's just a free-for-all.
I
Is
can't
it, or is
answer
it
for
not?
what's going on in that house, but my experience with several sober houses is they self-regulate themselves. They want to be good neighbors. They, well, things, I'm not saying all of them are, but that's what, but if you have a complaint, I will answer every.
I'll just say, I invited them here.
I just
I
have one.
mean, there's 2 sober houses we're talking about. I invited them both here. There's a representative from one of them. There's not a representative from the one at Gardner Road. So how much of a good neighbor that particular house wants to be, I don't know. They're not here to communicate with the neighborhood, so.
If I just mind one more thing, I was told that even though it's this sober home, that there still needs to be a permit for it. Is that true or not true?
The Americans with Disabilities Act is very clear that they forbid any kind of regulation of any kind by any
So,
municipality.
once again, we have another class of citizen who don't have to play by the rules, but the homeowners who are paying taxes up there, by the way, pretty mighty heavy taxes, to live in a Residence A neighborhood, are getting, are being held to all these zoning laws. And as far as the parking goes, I own a 2-family house on Allsted Street, and a couple of months ago, they went down the street and they ticketed every car on the street, every single car, whether you live there or not, boom, they all get, so, the parking, there are parking rules, and, if these people are living up there, they should have to have a parking permit to park in the street. I know that was the case when my son was living at my house on Gardner Road, and we couldn't fit all the cars in the driveway. We had to have a parking in a big window.
I can tell you that the city, we tried to look into ways of regulating them, but the federal government, there is just no way that you can.
So they can just do what they want?
Well, there are things we can do. We're not shutting the door on it, so if there are complaints and they're having an impact on the neighborhood, we'll certainly go up and.
Can they put 20 people in there?
I don't know how many people they can put in there. I don't know how many people you can put in your house, and I can't go to your house and determine how many people are
I
living.
know, but there seems to be.
That's why I'd raised the minimum
There's no
standard.
finite limit on this, that they could, if they want to put 20 people in there, they can put 20 people in there. That's what I'm hearing.
Jay and I had
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Jay and I had a robust discussion on the phone today about the ordinance that I'm proposing tonight in the council that would require a minimum of 150 square feet per person in a dwelling. I think we can enforce that because it's a sanitary code issue, and I'm sorry, can I just let me finish? I'm happy, again, happy to answer everyone's questions, everyone will get a chance to speak, but it's hard when multiple people are talking at the same time. If we can enforce the sanitary code, we can cap the number in any particular house. So that's one of the concerns that I think, and I would hope that we can address moving forward, because that's part of what the problem is. This guy's had his hand up. Oh, no, I'm sorry, she's right, all right. I'm leaving, calling up people back up.
You forget with whom you are dealing.
I'm sorry.
Just get up.
I don't have to. I taught middle school.
Oh, God
Nothing
bless you.
scares me. Thank you for having this forum. And I've come with very positive feelings about a sober house. I don't know how many people here are without a struggling person in your family or in your extended family. If your child, brother, sister, were doing the hard work of a 12-step program and needed help recovering, and somebody said, we don't want your brother next door to us, that would be a very different feeling. I'm very fortunate I don't have anybody in my immediate family. However, I have 2 nephews who went through sober houses and are sober today.
That's great.
Yes, praise God. And so I feel like, you know, if we could all pick our neighbors anyway, wouldn't that be great? The house that's next door to me is up for sale. I have no idea what will happen. I live on Plymouth Avenue.
Oh, right.
And I have no idea who might move in next door to me. It could be a group of, a family with 7 rowdy teenagers. And I would have no control over that. I would hate it. My daughter lives in Quincy.
Listen,
Well,
listen,
I
we're not
have
gonna,
my say.
let her speak.
Rebuttal
Let
will be
her-
your chance. My daughter lives in Quincy on Pleasant Street next to a sober house. That's not our ward, but she says they're just neighbors. They're just neighbors. She does not, and she has 3 little kids. She's very, very alert. So now I have to say that there doesn't seem to be a parking problem there. There's no parking on her street, so they've had to find other places. I think it's kind of ironic that the city of Quincy is making it almost impossible, or at least very expensive, to pave your own property, which would give more parking off the street. When I thought about paving one little section, the person told me, well, you know, you have to buy a permit, then you have to, maybe he's not right, and then you would pay a percentage of the cost of the project to pave that. I don't need it, I didn't have to have it, I wanted it for my little boys, I said forget it. So that's a little ironic. There isn't enough parking space. Some of these neighborhoods are old. I also take issue with treating a home with 15 people in it as a single-family home as opposed to, are there regulations for rooming houses?
Yes, but
They are much more like a rooming house, I would feel. So, you know, the category, the classification of the house and the parking issue are very difficult. And, but we see it all the time in all of our neighborhoods. But I would ask everyone to think about, is it fear? Are we acting out of fear? Do you have, I cannot claim to have had the experience, a negative experience. So therefore, I can only say what I can say. If you have really negative experiences, and you know, if abstinence, sobriety, if you're not clean, you're kicked out of those homes. Am I correct? No. You don't get to stay.
That don't solve the problem. You kick them out, they just go someplace else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This young lady, I know the young lady in the back, I'm sorry.
Hi, I am Jennifer. I'm here on the Gardner Road house. So actually, I have a question and then just a couple of other observations. So first of all, I was told, and this is to you, if you have a full bathroom, that can accommodate up to 10 people?
There's no bathroom count in single-family homes.
There isn't, okay, because when I visited the house today, and he told me that there were 3 full bathrooms, and that would allow him to have 30
Some
30
people
men.
go,
Yeah.
some houses have one bathroom, and
30?
that's no problem.
30?
Yeah, he told me because there were 3 full
In
bathrooms.
a commercial building, they have a count.
Yeah, so, I'm just saying, when I visited with him today, it was a very nice gentleman, he walked me through the house, and he told me that there were 3 full bathrooms, and that would accommodate 30 men living in that house, so, that's one thing.
Yeah, there's no regulation.
So to be
No
aware
regulation.
of. And then secondly, the organization that you had referred to as MASH, that is actually a pretty good organization. It makes sure that the sober houses are regulated. It's a voluntary organization, so these sober houses are not mandated to join MASH. And out of all of the sober houses in Quincy, which I have to imagine more than 5, only 5 are registered in the MASH program. The Gardner Roadhouse is not.
How long has it been open for?
Since December.
It's been open since December. We're just finding those out
That's
now.
what, yeah.
Why are we finding this out now?
So, a solution to this is that there will be 2 bills on the House floor come July. One of them is to have sober houses regulated by MASH. The other one is to have sober houses notify the constituents that they will be coming. And I urge all of you to call Mr. Ayers, ask him to vote yes.
2 separate reps there. Call John Keenan.
John Keenan.
He'll direct you.
Okay, and,
Yeah.
the
He
bill
represents
is
everyone.
House Bill 3207. That's the Act to Ensure Safe Living Conditions in Sober Houses. Again, House Bill 3207. And then the second bill is House Bill 1074. And that will alert the city officials, fire, health, safety, that sober houses would be in that area, so.
We welcome
In
the
terms of
regulation.
solutions, it doesn't seem like there's a whole heck of them, but we should definitely engage our public reps and have them vote yes on those 2 bills.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm here from Federal Lab. I know there's some neighbors who are also from Federal Lab. We haven't talked about this house at all tonight, but this is another one. Brian, I had emailed you about a few weeks ago. This is a 3-family house. That 1 floor has been turned into a sober house or sober living home, and 2 other floors have families. And so we haven't had any issues necessarily with the individuals who live there. Parking is becoming a concern as people are also sort of facing across the city. But within maybe a week or 2 of the sober home becoming part of this house, there was an overdose death in another unit. And we have regularly had issues with this landlord's tenants prior to the sober home I've only been here for 3 or 4 years, but neighbors have been here for a long time, and with some discussion, we know that this house has continuously been a problem since it was purchased somewhere in 2005, 2008 time. Is there no vetting on the federal level to see whether or not somebody's actually going to be putting in a place that's helpful for individuals who are trying to get clean? Because at the end of the day, if it's not something that we can regulate at a city level, then to somebody's point, like maybe it's something that we should support people becoming part of the community if we can't do anything else about it. And maybe there should be some urge from the city that these people who are moving into these houses should try to become more part of the community. What they're faced with is people come at night and they go in the house. We don't necessarily get any FaceTime with anybody who's in there. Nobody makes an effort to meet anybody else in the neighborhood, and it all is sort of done under the radar. I don't know if that's a product of the landlord sort of wanting to stay under the radar, or it's these individuals who just don't want to meet with anybody. But I think there needs to be something done about a landlord who has consistently had a terrible track record for vetting regular tenants, who now vet the tenants who are trying to recover. So at the end of the day, 1, are they actually in a supportive environment? And 2, is it left for the rest of us in the neighborhood to sort of pick up the pieces when stuff does go wrong, if things do go wrong? So, like, any suggestion there, how to deal with welcoming them, or how to deal with regulating them, or any other concerns like that? And maybe an individual who is actually managing a sober house can speak to what the vetting process is. I think, if I read correctly, your homes are certified by the voluntary certifications?
Certified all the way across the
Right.
whole state, everything.
Yeah, and that's voluntary.
Let me try and unpack some of it,
Sure,
a lot of
yeah.
good points in there, but, so I haven't been able to confirm that the federal house, that's why that wasn't a part of this discussion. I hadn't been able to confirm that they were using that as a sober house, so apologies, I guess.
No, that's
I didn't
fine.
recruit that in there. But I'll let you go next, okay? What you said about the welcoming part, so there was a reason why I said kind of my experience in the almost 8 years I've been counselor with sober houses, right? So we've had one that came in that said, hey, this is the it was all open. It was a community meeting, they answered questions. I was also supportive of another sober house that opened in another part of the city that wasn't our ward. And what they did is, when they opened, they did an open house with neighbors. They did community meetings, and then after they opened, they did an open house, and you could go and talk to the folks who lived in the house, not necessarily the residents, but the treatment providers. So that welcoming to the community, that's up to the owner. I mean,
And that's my concern. If this owner is consistently gonna be a problem, and doesn't care about the rest of the residents in the neighborhood anyway,
Has proven
there's
itself.
gonna be no,
Yeah.
there's gonna be no progress there.
right, and the Globe did a spotlight series, if any of you saw it last Sunday,
Yeah.
about how this industry is, a lot of it, it's attracting unscrupulous characters, because so many resources from insurance, state, federal, money being thrown at opioid addiction, that there are folks who are just running mills. You know, so if you're charging,
Making money off other people's misfortune and like.
so these absentee landlords who don't take care of their property already are saying, oh wow, now I can get away with jamming 3 times as many tenants into that place. I'll call it a sober home, and I jack the rent by 3 times as much.
I feel like what we need to hear from somebody with the city is, yes, there's no regulations, there's no ordinances, barely anything that can be enforced. What is the city going to do though to try to broker some communication with the people who are operating these sober houses? Maybe there already is some with the ones that are certified, because that's a great step to have taken, but the ones that aren't, and if nobody knew about this one on Federal Ave, well, how many others don't you know about?
I don't know.
Yeah, right, that's what I mean. So that, like,
There's a lot that should not be out there. I would like to educate everybody in how we run our houses. Very, very strict. We have 2 laboratory urines. We have, by speculation, we hit someone immediately with a fentanyl stick, 13-panel quick cup, and the ETG test. That's for alcohol. It lasts for up to 5 days long.
Where are these houses?
The Goddard House was one of them brought up, but we don't have no problems with the parking, so I think these guys.
No, I live on Goddard, we have problems with that.
But the Goddard House has their own parking lot. There's only one truck that parks out front because he can't fit out back. But there's not many even guys in there. There's 4 on one floor, and then there's 5 on the other. By mass regulations, you have to have 150 square feet and 75 square feet for each individual outlet. So there is 2 guys per room. Every floor has a fire extinguisher, sure. Every floor has Narcan. We have never had a OD, a death. We're the only ones left in the South Shore area. That is, yes. I'm at the Bennington House right at the corner. That one doesn't have problems. But the Goddard House is actually, we never had the cops there. No one's ever OD'd. There's requirements about being at my houses. You have a whole list of things that you have to do. You have to be part of the 12 step. You have to have a home group. You have to have a sponsor. If you don't meet these requirements, you're gone. I don't play. If you use and you fill your cups, we have a laboratory urine in our laboratory. The guy that owns this place is part of the State House, and he's the one trying to come up with the testing for the weed for driving. So.
How many houses are you, so are you the owner? The director?
No, I'm not the owner.
Okay.
I work with landlords. What happened is, the one on Goddard Street, she was gonna lose her property because 2 tenants took advantage of her and beat the crap out of her building. Weren't paying her because she was older, and then I went in and I helped her fix it, and I keep it full. I'm trying to take people off the streets. The program, I'm part of the program that saved my life. I got hurt at work, I fell 33 feet, broke both of my arms and my legs that hooked the painkillers. I had no choice in the matter because it was fed to me. And then I just dwindled away. And I had a moment of clarity, and I had 2 women that looked out for me, part of the Gavin Foundation. I was lead peer volunteer for 2.5 years of my life that I volunteered for because the program saved my life. I ended up becoming a manager for Northeast Silver Living, became the project coordinator, worked with a couple other landlords. They asked me to come over and do this. And I hopped in with them and I said, if I'm gonna do it, it's gonna be ran the right way. So we have 2 laboratory urines. We
How
have
many
5
houses are you, I don't mean to interrupt.
That I
you.
direct.
Over in that neighborhood, how many houses are you
There's only
responsible?
2.
Okay,
There's the Bennington house and the Goddard house.
Right.
And every time that.
and you're running both of those houses?
Yeah, I'm the director, she's the operations manager, and there's 2 managers per house. There's
So
a
you've
manager-
told me how many people are in the one house. How many people are in the other house?
The one at the Goddard house, there's only 9 guys.
How about Bennington?
The Bennington house has 13 women upstairs, and it's already,
So it's a
they
co-ed.
walk through, it's been measured, everything. The Bennington house, you guys don't even understand that.
So 13 total? I just want a number.
There's 13 upstairs for the 2 top floors.
And how many are
That's
downstairs?
43 per child, and downstairs, there's only 6. With
So
the
you have
manager's
19 people in that one house?
But the
It's
house
because
is
you
not,
need to address
the building inspector walked through it. We had MASH walk through it, we have fire extinguishers, I mean, like, it's beyond.
How many cars are
Say,
there?
huh?
How many cars, the parking of the cars up there?
The only issue that we had, and we actually got permission from the police at first, there is a corner that we have an issue with, there's a sign on both sides. The police used to let us park there. And then the neighbor across the street, because she has college students that come, she even told me, she made a complaint because it's hard to get through. So the police asked us not to park there. Now, there's other neighbors that park there, and then the neighbors think it's us. We stopped it, we cut it out. I don't want no problems with the neighbors.
So what
We
happens,
cut other people's lawns, I
is you
plow
move
up
down
front
the
of their
street and
houses.
park.
Say that
You don't
again?
park in front of your own residence because there's not enough room.
No, there
There's
isn't
almost
enough room. What
20
we do
people
is if
there,
there's
half
an
of them
extra-
own cars.
There's only 1 extra car for
What
both
about the
houses.
blue dump truck?
The blue dump truck's gone now. Do you notice that's been gone? Because I
I
kept
don't
it
know,
out.
because he used to park around the corner.
I know.
What I wanted to say is,
Yeah.
in all due justice, and in all due to his credit, before they were there, it must have been Section 8 housing, we had a problem with trash blowing down the street. My next door neighbor had to pick trash out of his yard.
You see what
That
happens
being
to the yard
said,
now though, right?
that being
He's up, let him
said,
finish.
that being said, the trash has been combined, but you got 13 people, almost 20 people worth of trash. None of the covers are on the barrels. My problem is, I live 3 doors down.
Did
We're
you
gonna
see
have
that
a
we took
rat
it away
problem
from
like
them?
we did
We
in
put it
North
all back
Quincy.
now.
That's number 1. Number 2, the people behind me, which is the Goddard house, they stay out on the porch and they smoke cigarettes. Where do you think they put the cigarettes?
They have a smokeless ashtray.
Well, you ask my neighbor where all the cigarettes end up. Because he goes there and he picks them all up with his leaf blower. We have addressed
You work
that.
on it definitely. If
We
are
have
doing
addressed that,
we're
so they're looking out for our best interest.
So one.
They're
Hold on, let him finish,
understanding.
let him finish. You can respond.
Their understanding of the situation. But you have a revolving merry-go-round there because you don't get the same people for more than 3 weeks in a row.
No.
So you have to re-educate everybody that comes in there to be
I'll
sympathetic to the
honest with you.
neighborhood.
How
On
it goes is
trash.
there's actually senior residents that are
Let him
always
finish.
there.
Boss, listen, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to respond. I know you feel a little
We've
bit
had 2
under
major,
attack, but just let him finish.
we've had 2 major fires in that neighborhood.
In that house,
That house.
that house, 1 o'clock,
Right.
noon, midnight, the fire department extinguished it, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, the house was ablaze again.
Let me talk, Bruce. So, that being said, we're very sensitive to the fact, and I understand what the people have as a problem. And the last thing you want to do is take a cigarette away from them. That's all they have to hold on to. You know, they walk down the street. I live 3 houses. By the time they get down to my street, to my house, they're done with their smoke. Where do you think the butt goes?
So
From my
I
house.
promise you that I will address this, and if they.
And more than once, when I take my walk and I come up the street, you know, I understand people have problems and you drug test them and you test them for alcohol.
We go.
But more than once, I've seen vodka bottles in the bushes.
There was a
You
general
know,
teacher
I mean,
that
they have a
actually just
problem.
recently, we ended up discharging them. People do relapse, and I try not to.
Absolutely.
They are out immediately when they relapse.
But you have a tough job and you have to stay on it, number 1, on the house that you're controlling and directing. And another thing, I just want to say, since he's taken over, the property has improved dramatically. They're always out there working. The person that owned Goddard House, still owns Goddard House, neglected it completely. He come in, he cleaned it up. They actually do a good job.
I agree, Tom.
But I'm just leery, and we have to stay on guard because evidently this is not going away. But this has to be strictly regulated.
If I can
Because
interject.
I lived in this neighborhood for 35 years. with these lovely people. We put a lot of pride in our property.
It's a wonderful neighborhood.
Someday,
Both of
when I
these
get to a
neighborhoods are.
point where I want to sell, is my value gonna go down because there's a sober house 3 doors up?
Yes. There is.
Yeah.
So if I could just say 2 things on that, on the value.
That's what I'm-
I was gonna say, when she brought up the taxes, if I lived in your neighborhood, I would file an abatement on my taxes on the next tax bill that I get. I would try, okay? And then as it relates to what you were saying, sir, folks, let's all come back to one conversation. This isn't about whether or not what you're doing is good, and this is not about whether or not you are successful or not. This is about protecting a quality of life in a neighborhood, okay? So you and I are going to talk after this, and we're going to get to be friends, okay? Because when they call me, I'm going to call you, and we're going to make some improvements.
I would really like
And I appreciate you being here. That says a lot to begin with.
have an issue, they can call me directly.
We don't
I
have
think
it.
the gentleman brought up a good point, cigarette butts. I just want to make it clear, that's something the city can do. And we would do it, if you call, we will come and we'll address the cigarette issue. You need to call us, and that's at least with the city.
It's more than trash, it's more the trash.
I know, but please call, and we'll send somebody right down.
Excuse me, Jay, you keep talking about these houses as if they're still being used as a one-family home. They're not. They're being run as corporations now, as moneymakers.
Yeah.
I would love to know how much money each person who lives in this house, who pays for that person, how much per person, so the more people they have in there. I mean, the house is on Gardner Road. I live on Gardner Road. I'm very, very concerned about the value of my home. Who wants to live? Who wants to live near one of these homes, okay?
So they are profit centers.
They are profit centers now.
Because they're not 501c3.
But that's not what I'm saying, sir. What I'm saying is that they have 15 people, I think it's my turn now, right? If there's 15 people living, I did. There's 15 people living on Gardner Road. If each person, I'd like to know how much they're receiving per person. The person who bought that house 2-3 years ago paid, I don't know, I think it was $7.99. They were trying to make money. They put it back on the market. They couldn't sell it. The homes on Gardner Road, because of their substantial, they take a little while to sell. So the next thing you know, we have this neighbor who, without telling anyone on the street, just brings in a sober house. And someone brought up a very, very good point here. There are relapses. And these people, they do relapse. We're all human, okay? We can fall off the wagon. But the next thing you know, I'm worried about burglaries, maybe a little bit of crime in our neighborhood. Just last week alone, there were 5 cop cars in front of 192 Gardner Road. For what reason, I don't know. That's when I found out that there was a sober house. And my neighbor Kevin came down a few days later and handed me this letter. And this is the first that I found out about it. So I am very concerned. And I think it's wonderful that this lady here thinks it's a wonderful thing. I'm not saying it's not, but it belongs in certain areas. And again, I'm not being discriminatory about a neighborhood, but certainly not in a real, a one-family home area like Gardner Road. And one more thing, 150 feet for one person? Well, these homes are all about 5,000 square feet, so you're going to put 50 people per house?
I didn't write the state sanitary code. I was
I know, but
modeling
you
the
said you're going
sanitary,
to be passing some code about 150,
which is the
150 square
state
feet.
sanitary code.
Well, just think how many they can put on Gardner Road then.
I'm just trying to model the state
Yeah,
sanitary
I
code so that we can
understand.
find
I
some way
understand. I
to
think that
prevent
we
there
really-
from being like 50,
Yeah.
60 people
So
in a
basically, from
single
what I
house.
gather, there really isn't anything that we can do about this home already on Gardner Road. We're stuck with it. Is that correct?
We're stuck with it to an extent that the city we still have the ability to go down there.
But all you really wanted to inspect, what are you going to inspect if they're bringing the house out? If the house is up to date, what are you going to inspect? We're basically stuck with the house. Of course we know what the value is. But again, these are being treated now as money makers. This is no longer a one-family home. And that's where I think you, as in your position, should maybe find out what can be done about that. This is no longer a one-family home. This is a corporation now. There's a lot of money being made with 15 people per home.
What do they pay per person?
Exactly. How much?
How much a person?
Can you tell us that, how much each person pays? Or what organization pays for these people to live there, and how much per person?
It's a normal rent. I don't wanna get into it because the landlord is not here.
You mean these people that live in the homes pay the money themselves, or is it the
They
government?
pay themselves. No, I don't do that.
$700.
This is for them to get better. The requirements is to work in house. We are the nicest houses around. We lead by example big time. Like, I'm parole, I'm federal, I am mass certified. I went down with my contracts right to the police station and told them, these are the houses, these are where they are. I have nothing to hide. You guys can come through every time. I do not mess around in my houses. There's a reason why I got involved in this. There's a big reason. And the reason why, another thing about the placement, about having people in a room, the big problem is that a lot of these houses, they will put someone in one room. Then it's segregation. There's a reason why I don't have ODs and desks, because they don't have time by themselves. So it's 2 person per each room. And that's the big reason.
But
Because
you
once they
live
have
in your
time
homes,
alone, that's
correct?
when
You
find
live,
someone.
you're managing that home, there's always supervision. From what I hear, there is nobody supervising Gardner Road.
Oh, that's,
That's not-
that
how
has
can that
nothing to
be?
do with me, but I know at my house.
I know it's nothing to do with you.
Is a maintenance, I have nothing to do with it.
Do you know the guy?
No, I don't.
You have no idea who
I
this
know,
guy is?
I know it's not mass certified.
Folks, one conversation. Ma'am, go ahead. Yep, in the back.
My name is Maureen Guarini, and last week in the Boston Sunday Globe, there was an article out there on Danny Clinton, who owns this house on Gardner Road, and that's my son. I wrote my story about my son because Danny, there are reputable programs, solar houses out there, and there are not good solar programs out there. Danny Cliggett, everything in that article, you can look it up, you can go on the Boston Globe, last Sunday paper, you can go to www.statnews.com, you can read all about who Danny Cliggett is.
He is running.
And this is the person who's running Gardner Road.
Why did
For those of you, hold on a second, hold on a
The only
second.
thing
Hold
Danny
on.
wants to do is make money. My son went down to Delray, Florida, Danny Cliggett paid for his plane ticket, he paid for his place down there, and then left him down there. My son died down to Delray, Florida. And he's done this to many other people. They were a very nice place, my son struggled with addiction for 10 years. So I have nothing against sober houses because he's been in every one of them. He's been in the Gardner House.
I know
He's
your
been
son
in
is.
Patrick
I
Rain.
met him before.
Yes, thank you. So this has nothing to do whether a sober house is good, right? This has to do with the one on 192 Gardner Road that is being run by Danny Cliggett, and he is not, it's just, read the Globe. Read last Sunday's Globe. You can go to www.statnews.com.
Let me say, we're very sorry for your loss. That story was heartbreaking. This is the article I referenced.
Heartbreaking, it's the truth.
No, it's heartbreaking that there are folks out there who are capitalizing on the grief.
It was all the facts were checked, and it's all true.
Yeah, I was talking about your son, man, not.
But Danny Cliggett is running up the road.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's bad. Yeah. I was told by someone that he was running the house on Gardner Road. Yeah, right.
He owns Brady Place in Weymouth, he owns a Gardner House, and he owns a house up in, well, he doesn't own, he leases the house. He doesn't own any of his houses, he leases. And he has a house up in Westfield, that's a $100,000 home, and he's charging $10,000 a month for this. So he is the one running this, and he calls his company God, what is it?
Vision
from God. That's what he calls his company.
Wonderful.
So it has nothing, you seem like you're running a good place.
Thank you very much.
What he did is, just read, just everybody read it.
I would say I'm not.